Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you are joining this Learn webinar. As a matter of fact, the Learn project is a project that is focusing on education in the European Union. However, we have raised much interest with this webinar, and we are delighted to be welcoming today colleagues from New Zealand, from Australia, from Asia, from Africa, and from the Americas. So welcome to all of you to this Learn webinar. Today's webinar will focus on one of the latest ETSC publications on the Learn Key Principle reports. This is a report with 17 key recommendations on traffic safety education, recommendations that should be implemented if we want to make sure that everyone, especially children and youngsters, can have access to high quality traffic safety and mobility education. However, instead of organizing a webinar in which we would only list the 17 recommendations and explain the 17 recommendations, we asked some of our experts to explain these recommendations by showing how they have been implemented in their respective countries. Therefore, we hope the recommendations in themselves, plus the best practice examples, will help you to get some inspiration on and motivation as well to implement them in your local context and in your national context. Before I give the floor to my colleague Frank, who will take you through the seminar, I would also want to give you the warm welcome from my president, Herman de Croo, who has been inter alia also Minister for Education in Belgium, and he was telling me how important it was during his tenure to introduce traffic safety education in all elementary schools. He's listening, he's with us, and he would like to join me in welcoming you today to this Learn webinar. Frank, the floor is yours now for the continuation of the seminar.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Frank Mütze, and I manage the Learn project at ETSC. And before we go into the key principles, I want to quickly introduce you to the Learn project so that the scene and the context for the key principles recommendations are set. So first of all, within the Learn project, we have defined traffic safety and mobility education as all measures that aim to positively influence the traffic behavior of persons. And in order to limit the scope of the project, we focus specifically on children and youngsters up to the age of 18 years old, as this is the target group most educational activities focus on. Our definition, however, also already reflects quality criteria. Traffic education should not only be about learning about the traffic rules and signs, the knowledge, and learning about how to ride bicycle safety skills, but also about making sure that the children and youngsters have the right attitude and motivations to participate in traffic safety. Moreover, they should learn about sustainable mobility as well, as that is a topic that goes hand in hand with traffic safety. So last year, we published our first Learn report on the 24th of January, which was coincidentally also the first UN International Day of Education. And in this report, we looked at the status of traffic safety and mobility education throughout Europe, both from a legal perspective, for example, whereas road safety education mandatory for all ages, as well as the practical perspective. So for example, what are the children taught and how much do they actually get in practice? Before looking at the results, there is one important aspect to point out, and that is that almost all European countries have signed the UN's Convention on Road Traffic, and they have thereby committed to ensure that road safety education is provided on a systematic and continuous basis, particularly in schools at all levels. However, the results of our report, which I'm going to show that the countries do not live up to this commitment in reality. So with regards to the results of the report showed that road safety education is given at primary schools in all European countries. However, in kindergartens, it's only given in 69% of the states, and at secondary schools in 81% of the states. Only 3 countries, the Czech Republic, Germany, and Ireland, have fulfilled the commitment that I previously mentioned, with the remark that one of those 3 countries, Ireland, did not sign that convention. However, the report showed that there is a significant difference across Europe, as well as between the educational levels on how and how much traffic safety education is given. For example, with regards to the amount of road safety lessons given in states, primary school children in Lithuania receive 40 hours per school year, while those in Hungary receive only 6 times 45 minutes. And the difference is even more significant between the educational levels. In those states where road safety education is given at secondary schools, it is, however, sparsely addressed. And another example of the differences is the types of lessons received by pupils. While the lessons at primary schools are predominantly a combination of theoretical and practical lessons at primary schools throughout Europe, there is a significant shift to only having theoretical lessons at secondary schools. And these are just a couple of examples of the differences and the status of traffic safety and mobility education in Europe. And more can be found in a report which can be downloaded for free on our website. So to conclude the report, it shows that in practice, the state's UNECE commitment is not always fulfilled, and that there is a lot of room for improvement in that regard, and notably at secondary education, especially when you take into account the safety statistics that show that the majority of those killed under the age of 18 are actually in secondary schools. So earlier this year, on the second UN International Day on Education, we published the second Learn report, the key principles, which is the topic of today's webinar. And to give you a little bit of background into how this publication came about, for the Learn project, we have expert panel meetings with the experts that provide us with valuable support during the project. And during these meetings, we noticed that the experts all faced similar challenges in their countries. And after collecting and categorizing these challenges, we then discussed recommendations to address these. And after long discussions and deliberations, the expert panel came up with 17 key recommendations on how to ensure and how to improve the qualitatively sound traffic safety and mobility education, the Learn key principles. Before going into the recommendations, there is one other aspect of the key principle report that is important, and that is the section that sets out why it is important to provide traffic safety and mobility education. It gives several arguments, for example, that it is important for achieving Vision Zero as part of an integrated approach to improving road safety. That it's also important for the implementation of the safe system approach and shared responsibilities, that it is important for children to grow up to become responsible road users, and it is important as children have a right to grow up in safety. So during this webinar, I will quickly introduce each group of key principles, highlighting the main points of each key recommendation, after which I will invite the expert to provide their experiences and best practices from their country with regards to the implementation of the group of key principles. The first group of key principles revolve around ensuring the right to receive traffic safety and mobility education. And traffic safety and mobility education is a lifelong learning process, and everyone, regardless of age, should therefore have access to traffic safety and mobility education. Road safety education is especially important for children and youngsters up to the age of 18 at kindergartens and schools, because children need to learn what is safe and what is hazardous in order to help them avoid harm in traffic. And road safety education will also prepare them to become safe road users. It is furthermore important that high-quality educational material and interventions are used that are adapted to their age and maturity. To have a positive effect, projects should be well planned and evaluated, because projects that are poorly designed can in fact have an adverse effect and are furthermore a waste of resources that could have been better invested. Traffic safety and mobility education should furthermore be integrated in the curricula for schools at all levels as well as kindergartens, and this should be reflected in the documentation on the curricula at both national and school level. And in order to achieve the educational goals set out in the curricula, as a minimum, a specific number of teaching hours should be dedicated to the subject every year. Following this line, the specific goals for traffic safety and mobility education should be set for each level of education and for each type of road user. And these goals should be set strategically at a national level as minimum learning requirements, based upon which then the individual interventions' operational objectives can be established. The goals should not only be about attaining knowledge and skills, but also ensure that they attain the right behavior necessary to participate in traffic safely. And the first of the last group of key principles is the recommendation that sufficient resources should be allocated to traffic safety and mobility education, not only in terms of financial resources, but also with regards to the availability of time and human resources. And this is to ensure that the traffic safety and mobility education can be taught in practice and the key principles implemented. And for our first expert, I would like to give the floor to Vassiliki to tell us about Road Safety Institute Panos Mylonas' experience with the integration of traffic safety and mobility education in Greece's curricula, as there has been an update since the publication of the key principles. So we're very interested to hear about this. And please feel free to already send your questions during the presentations using the Q&A button, and we will address them collectively at the end of the webinar. Vassiliki.
Thank you very much, Frank, and thanks to all who are following our presentation. I feel really very challenged, and so my team does in the Road Safety Institute, when we feel very challenged participating in this project that provides lots of opportunity, and we're really grateful to ETSC and the excellent coordination by Frank. We are going to present you our contribution for road safety education, closely working with the Ministry of Education in Greece. I am here in Thessaloniki now from the Thessaloniki Chamber of Commerce and Industry, starting our work in northern Greece. And Vangelis, our sociologist, is in our offices in Athens. So we will be both at your disposal for answering questions. Next slide, please. We are going to present who we are, how did we start with traffic education, and how we have contributed to the Greek national educational system. Our collaboration with the Greek Ministry of Education, which is very important. You need to work closely with the educational community, our school programs, and the framework on traffic safety and mobility education. Next slide, please, Frank. In RSI Panos Mylonas was created in 2005 after the tragic unfair loss of Panos. We have been doing a lot since then for 15 continuous years, with our vision, a world without road crashes, and our mission being to raise awareness for society for safe behavior on the road, and to support the government and stakeholders to act for the prevention of traffic crashes. Next slide, please. Our work has been acknowledged by organizations such as the United Nations, the European Commission, ETSC, FIA, IRF, and also has been awarded by the European Parliament with the European Citizens Award, and honored by the Swedish government. And of course, we are a member of the National Road Safety Council in Greece. Next, please. Concerning traffic safety and mobility education in the Greek national educational system, both in primary and secondary education, traffic safety is not a dedicated subject, and for many years it has been relying on the teachers' wishes and initiatives to deliver programs at school. Neither teachers are officially trained in traffic safety education while their studies at the college, and they accept to have external experts like our Road Safety Institute and the traffic police who are invited to deliver program. There has been, for the secondary education, the thematic week, where teachers can work for a whole week, choosing the topics for safety in their lessons, planning for 1 week in the school year. And external experts have a role to play in this. Next, please. The thematic week has been taking place since the last 3 years through the decision of the Ministry of Education. And there are specific areas that during a week in the school year can be dedicated in one of the topics, such as democratic coexistence and human rights, gender identity, road safety and traffic education, nutrition and quality of life, and the prevention of abuse and addictions. We have been working closely with the Pedagogue Institute or Institute of Educational Policy and the Ministry of Education so as to develop material. Our material has been approved by the ministry. So we deliver, we implement the programs at the schools. And last week, it was a new initiative that was introduced, and this was decided after the proposal of the Ministry of Education. This was voted in the Parliament, the development of skills laboratories. The new Minister of Education gives a lot of attention to this issue. So road education, traffic education can be integrated within the development of skills for young people in the well-being area, health education, among subjects like mental health, sex education, and addiction prevention. So self-care, safety and prevention on road safety. Other issues are the environment, social empathy and responsibility, and the creative thinking. Within respect, we have already developed and submitted programs that have been approved. And for the next slide, you will see, next please, you will see how we have been working with the Ministry of Education and Religious Affairs and the Education and the Radio and Television Department of the Ministry in developing even contests where students in small teams with the guidance of their teachers using our materials can participate. It is the 3rd year now that the call is in progress. The National School Digital Contest on Road Safety, in collaboration with the Educational Radio Television of the Ministry of Education. We are really very inspired and very enthusiastic with the works the students present. And we have been also the scientific and technical advisor to the Ministry of Education for their calls for developing educational TVs and video spots. The materials we have developed is submitted to the Institute of Education and Education Policy, and after the approval, we are assisting the teachers in the laboratories, the thematic week previously, and the laboratories now for developing skills. And also we implement workshops for teachers of primary and secondary schools so that they have the tools when we're not in the school to continue the work we have started, and we're always in close collaboration. Next slide, please. In this slide, you can have an impression with some pictures from our works, the National School Digital Contest, the videos developed created for the teacher guides. We develop activity sheets, VR scenarios, secondary education, health and environmental education teachers. And the ministry, at the beginning of the school year, issues a circular which is sent toward the schools. So in this respect, we can organize the programs and schedule the programs throughout the year, doing the planning, because as Frank mentioned, is very important to have the programs well planned and evaluated, which is something we do with great respect and consideration. In the next slide, you can see big posters when we announced at the beginning of the year the contest for the school. For example, last year it was on the road with care, or road safety, responsibility, a right for all, according to primary or secondary education. This year, for the primary school, the subject was road safety everywhere and always. And for the high school students, it was road safety, a shared responsibility. But this is something which is heavily promoted by ETSC and the European Commission. Next slide, please. It is very important to work closely with the state, with the government, specifically the Ministry of Education and, in its country. You can see pictures from our program. Our program, Do It Right, for the secondary school, a very highly acknowledged program. We receive a lot of enthusiasm, and young people are attracted, and we receive more and more requests. And so road safety is receiving great attention in the school community, and this empowers us to continue. Next slide, please. Here is a list of our programs, starting with young kids in traffic safety for primary school education. Be a Night for road safety. We have our hero for road safety, the Knight, Eugene, who promotes courtesy on the road, and not only involves other children, but also parents, attracts the parents, and urges them to become responsible on the road. Cycling in Safety is a program that receives a lot of attention as well. Do It Right is our program for secondary school education. Hermes is a program we are very fond of. We have signed an MOU with the Ministry of Justice for developing this program, and the Court of Justice, through decisions, sends young traffic offenders and their families to join this 6-hour program. And we do also do programs even in the prison. And the Avenue for Traffic Safety, starting from a European funded project, deals with educational health and safety, and we deliver a lot of programs to the corporate business, because it's not well known that 6 out of 10 work fatalities are related to road crashes. You can see the numbers, which are huge for Greece, but they are increasing year by year everywhere, in the military force, in schools, and the corporate business. Next slide, please. Our traffic safety school programs in schools, you can see some pictures. Apart from the theoretical practice, we use experiential learning approach. Different pictures you can see from the different programs. And in the next slide, you can see the framework we have developed in the Road Safety Institute according to pedagogue principles. Our programs have an experiential character, as well as I said, through the use of simulators and experiential exercises. We use also the interdisciplinary approach because it is very important to link safety to the curricula and the different subjects, mathematics, physics. Cooperative learning is within the program of our Ministry of Education. Students work in small groups and closely together so that teamwork is promoted in the activity, something that helps them with their safe behavior on the roads, but also with the future in their lives. And the pedagogical background of the trainers comes from different areas such as psychology, sociology, and engineering. In the next slide, and I'm soon finishing, our framework addresses the prevention of injuries and deaths on the road, health promotion and prevention of unsafe behaviors, participatory learning and action, empowering the initiatives of the participants, and enhancing community and teamwork. We are at your disposal, and I believe that we can gain from each other experiences, and Learn project provides great opportunities for the educational community. Let's come to the last slide of my presentation now, Frank. We are also coordinating an Erasmus project, so-called Cross Nights for Road Safety program under Erasmus Plus, with an aim to bring a change on how road safety programs and initiatives are implemented in schools across Europe by strengthening the profiles of the teaching profession on road safety issues. And the objectives are to improve the awareness of teachers and provide them with tools to support their work, to improve their skills, and to provide ideas for projects and lessons to plan. We are developing, we're implementing from the 20 to 24th of July an online course, which can be, we're happy to have you attending, visiting the link you see here or our website. You can state your interest. Teachers, school heads, those who develop curricula, policymakers and educational authorities could be interested in this seminar. We are very thankful to ETSC and to all the partners in the program and all those who have been sharing their experience with us. We believe a lot in education. As Frank mentioned in the beginning, this is very important on many issues. Improves our quality of life and provides us a better future. This is the end of my presentation. In the last slide, you can see our contact details. I wish to thank you very much for attending and to thank my colleagues for this inspiring Learn project. And we are, of course, at your disposal, working together for a better future in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vassiliki, for your very interesting presentation. Moving on to the second group of key principles, and these focus on engaging and supporting schools. The management of schools and kindergartens should be encouraged by policymakers at both national and local level to implement national policies in their schools and kindergartens, and also to ensure that the pupils are taught about traffic safety and mobility. Policymakers at all levels should furthermore provide the necessary support to the managers in the planning, the organization, implementation and monitoring of traffic safety mobility education and the policies at schools. Talking about policies, all schools and kindergartens should also have a traffic safety and mobility policy. And this policy should include an educational plan setting out for the school year what road safety lessons they will teach in which grades. A traffic safety and mobility policy also outlines, for example, how parents are involved in traffic safety education, how the traffic safety around the school is ensured, and how safe and environmentally friendly transportation can be ensured for school trips. It should also cover the wider perspective on school ethos and the environment, for example, by taking into account how traffic safety attitudes are influenced, which underlines the importance that the school staff models the appropriate road safety behaviors and attitudes. And it should furthermore be revised and updated every year and developed in cooperation with all relevant partners, such as the municipality, the police community, parents, and the pupils. Schools should also have a teacher that acts as a coordinator or central point of contact for traffic safety and mobility education. On the one hand, the teacher would motivate, inspire, guide, and support the other teachers in providing proper lessons in road safety and sustainable mobility. And on the other hand, this teacher would be the central contact point for the school, linking the school to the municipality, the police, and other road safety related organizations. Appointing a regular teacher as a traffic safety contact teacher is furthermore a low-cost measure, as the teacher would already receive a salary, yet it would ensure that provision of such education is improved at the school. Experiences in Norway and Denmark show that the pupils of the schools that have appointed such teacher receive more traffic safety and mobility education. Lessons should furthermore be provided to the teachers in order to ensure that they feel confident to give traffic safety and mobility education lessons and to ensure that they remain up to date. And support can, for example, be given by having road safety education experts show how the lessons could be done. And I'm happy to now give the floor to Wilma Slinger to tell you more about how this group of key principles is implemented in the Netherlands through road safety labels for schools. Wilma, we can't hear you. You need to unmute your mic.
Yes.
Thank
Hello.
you.
Good morning. I just said we didn't organize the Eurovision Song Contest this year because of COVID, but it feels a bit like the same with all these countries in this call. Hello, my name is Wilma Slinger, and I give you some information about a project we already do for more than 10 years in Holland now, the road safety labels. Let's see. Oh, yes. I was a bit sad last week because I received the ETSC report about the latest data about road safety, and in the Netherlands we are doing quite bad. So we have a lot to do yet, and that's why I started with this sheet. After my presentation, you know something about me and the organization I work, a little bit about road safety education and the policy in the Netherlands, and how we work on road safety labels for traffic safety in primary schools and our experiences with it. I work at an organization called CROW for some people. We do a lot of things. We work in the field of traffic and transport. We work for municipalities and provinces. And we also do a lot of research and knowledge dissemination about road safety. And we have a website which is in English also, where some publications of us are published, some of them free of charge. So I did put the web address on this sheet. If people are interested in specific cycling, you can download some information. In Holland, we adopted a new policy frame in the end of 2018, which main focus is risk analysis, prevention of accidents instead of acting upon them. And we have in Holland 12 provinces, you see them in this figure, and each province is responsible for their own region, has their own budget and makes their own priorities. So it's quite a job to get a whole policy for the whole country. The policy document is published, and I also put a link on the sheet because it's also translated in English, so you can read it if you want to learn from it. Oh. We also adopted the concept of lifelong learning. That's more used in other countries too. Road safety education at all modes of transport and important moments in your life. So that's not new, I think. And we come to the road safety label now. It's, well, I said it started in 1997 in the province of North Brabant. There they wanted like an umbrella project for individuals' projects for road safety in primary schools. No separate activities, a whole package every year, and also subsidized and supplied by the provincial authorities. The main goal was to stimulate road safety in and around schools and make it more safe for youth. How do they do that? Schools have to meet criteria to get a road safety label. I talk about that later. And they are given the time to implement it at their own pace in collaboration with all kinds of partners like the police or a road safety association which acts locally, teachers, children, parents, everybody is involved. And the main goal is to ensure a continuous curriculum because the lifelong learning principle is acting upon that. Here you see a graph of the province of North Brabant in the period of 1997-2017. The label existed for 10 years when they made this graph, and you see they have more than 800 primary schools in this province, and more than 700 were labeled at that point. It differs between the provinces. North Brabant started first and well, is doing best, I think. Other provinces are keeping up and growing. And 9 out of 12 provinces are contributing to this project. And the region of Antwerp is also interested at this moment to implement that in their region. So it's quite spread out. The criteria which the schools has to meet, here they are, they're containing 5 subjects. School organization is about giving road safety a plan in your school policy plan, so that it's implemented in the base of what you want as a school. What I mentioned earlier, road safety education in all grades in the classroom, not just group 5 or kindergarten, but all grades. And what's most important is it's also not only theory, but also practice. Practice in school grounds, but also on streets, walking, cycling, because it's not common anymore that every child knows how to cycle. In Holland it is like a cycle country, but not for every child. So it's important to get some practical education at school too. Also the school has to have plans for making the school more safe in their environment and the school the routes leading to it. So they have to monitor that. And collaboration and communication with parents is very important, and also have a road safety parent per school, which is a contact person to parents and between school and parents. How does the process go for getting a label? First, you have to have your will to get it as a school. So you register it at a website where you can say, I want to go this project. I want to go in this, I want to have this label, and I'm going to do everything about it to get it. You make a self-evaluation and see where you stand. And this is the starting point to have an intake conversation with an auditor which will visit you. These are former teachers or other persons who are very committed to the subject and have knowledge about it. They have an intake conversation with you, and they give a kind of a 0 point where you stand at this moment. And then you can make an activity plan on which points you have to work on yet, and implementing it, and set up practical lessons. Sometimes you will be helped with it by subsidizing traffic teachers, for instance. South of Holland is doing that. And when you think you meet the criteria, that you think, well, now I'm doing quite well, I want to assess, and the auditor is coming again, and yeah, you have a conversation again about what did you do, and he will advise a committee for having you labeled or not. And when the result is there, well, you get the label, and it will be you have to maintain all the efforts and do other things to keep it. If the label is the award is being given, there is much lot of partying, and policymakers are there, and the schools are there, parents are there, children are there, and it's always a party when a label is put on the wall, because parents can see this is a school which has much attention to road safety. The government in this story is mostly the subsidizing party, and also the party who takes care of the safe school routes and organizing meetings with all of the actors to discuss some things in the school environment. Our experiences so far are very good. Schools are very enthusiastic, and it gives an umbrella project gives more structure for road safety education in every grade. People know what to do, and when they know what to do, costs can be budgeted. People are committed to it. Continuity is always an issue. There are a lot of changes in teachers or in governments of people going to another job. Well, if you have an umbrella project, people are more committed to the goal and stay together in working at this purpose. And also it gives more structure to practical education, because teachers find that often very difficult to do, and when they are helped with it, well, the chance of success is much bigger. Some developments at this moment, Noord-Brabant province has been part of a European project called STARS. It was about stimulating active travel to school, and because of that, they changed the criteria, or not even the criteria, but it changed how you get the label. In Brabant, you get a bronze, silver, or gold label, because when you are silver or gold, you take much more effort in safe cycling to school, walking to school, and much more effort in communication with parents. So they kind of split it out a bit more. In the future, near future, I said we are spreading to Belgium at this moment. Maybe Werner can talk about that later. And we try to make things easier for schools, because getting labeled by an auditor and fill in such forms, we try to do much more online in portals, and let schools sometimes do self-assessment, and that the province can look in the portal how they're doing. So we try to make the efforts more easier, so that they don't have much work on it. Some provinces are thinking about connecting with home education projects for parents to do, so that label can spread out about projects with that. And we want to make more connection with our national policy of the risk analysis, that we put some more data in it when we have a self-assessment on how many children are coming in what way to school, and what do we want to achieve with that. So that are more thoughts what we're thinking about at this moment. This is in short what I wanted to tell you about this label, and if there are any questions, I will answer them. The presentation will be available for everybody.
Thank you very much, Wilma, for your very interesting presentations. And indeed, if you have any questions for Wilma or the other experts, please use the Q&A button to send in your questions. We will now continue on with the next group of key principles, which revolve around ensuring high quality education. And I will give the floor to Kristen, who will not only go into more detail with regards to these key principles, but also present you with best practice examples in Norway. So, and I think Kristen is joining us now, yes?
Hello.
Hello, Kristen.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello. It's here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Actually, we have good news for you today. We just published an article where we show that high quality traffic safety and mobility education has an effect. But as always, there is a but. It is hard work. No easy solutions or quick fix, but still. Anyway, this leads me to my little talk today about high quality education. I think we can say that our Norwegian study follows all the 5 principles concerning high quality education. That means several elements are included, like knowledge, skills, attitudes, motivation, and training in traffic. It is up to date. We follow quality standards. We have done tests and outcome evaluation. And the pupils and teachers also evaluate themselves as part of the process. I think it's important to say that all the best practice examples in the Learn report actually belong to more than one of the principles. The 5 principles you see here are very closely related and dependent. But we have designed the report and the principle this way to underline detailed information from some of the aspects to go more closely into. So the principle high quality is really a key principle in our work, both in the definition, as Frank showed you, in this report, as you see here, and will be the main issue in our next Learn report, which is the manual. Next, please. Children cannot learn safe behavior in the same way as adults, and therefore they need specially designed pedagogical approaches in combination with safe areas for outdoor play and mobility on foot or bicycle. There are different ways of designing traffic safety education. Historically, a clear development has taken place from learning rules and behavior patterns by heart towards creating insight and understanding about the traffic system, other road users, different types of risks, and how you yourself and the society can contribute towards better safety. Pedagogically, there has been a change from teacher-centered towards student-centered approaches with more use of problem-based and investigative methods. Learning has gradually been underlined more than teaching. The aim of traffic safety education, as we now have said, is not only to increase knowledge, but to create insight and understanding and motivation to behave safely. Therefore, we have to support the development of insight, motivation, good attitudes, and intentions to behave safely. This is believed to have a large potential for supporting the safety of children when they are young, but also builds a foundation for traffic safety at older age. It's difficult, of course, to draw categorical conclusions on what yields good learning. Much of the research, however, points out student active teaching, followed up by reflection, application, recapitulation, and continuous assessment Students must be engaged, motivated, and involved, and teaching must be based on the students' pre-knowledge. Furthermore, the student should have the opportunity to explore, explain, and elaborate their knowledge and understanding. Continual assessment is recommended as an integrated part of teaching, not only at the end. And of course, lessons should not only take place in the classroom, but also include training and experience in practice. Next, please. Of course, we have to keep up with research in the field of traffic safety. But in addition, we need knowledge coming from outside the road safety community, such as neuroscience, psychology, and technological innovations. And of course, we have to keep up with developments in our school system, the methods they use and their way of thinking. Traffic safety and mobility education in kindergartens and school must be renewed to make them relevant for the future. We cannot predict what present-day children need in order to be safe in the next decade's traffic. Therefore, they have to learn how to behave safely. Next, please. Our best practice example mentioned in the report is about young cyclists. It is called Children, Attention and Cycling. And the cycling and teaching took place in an outdoor facility designed for bicycle training in the city of Trondheim, where teachers from 3 counties conducted the training program with 30 pupils. Responsible for this study is SINTEF, Nord University, and Trygg Trafikk, our organization. Next, please. The aim of this study, as some of you have heard before, was to develop a training program that can improve children's selective attention, the ability to orient themselves, assess risk, and adjust their speed when traveling on bike in traffic. Based on the latest research in neuroscience, we made a test for children using wearable glasses with eye tracking sensors. And the results were used to establish an attention training program for the most critical traffic situations. The method is to challenge and stimulate key functions of the brain based on mind, brain, and education. Several central parts of the brain are activated when you physically navigate the landscape, and these form the basis for the development of what we call cognitive maps, which are essential for learning through episodic memory and for permanent storage of events. So this training program was evaluated by studying cyclist behavior in a virtual reality scenario, as you see here on the picture. The pupils sit on a bike with the VR goggles with integrated eye tracking and ride a very lifelike scenario. Their task is to behave like they practiced during the attention training. And a control group rides the same scenario, having received what we usually call regular or traditional bike training. And the results show a distinct difference between the groups, as I will show. Next, please. This is just to show how the cycling yard looks like. The yellow arrows show early attention, that means prediction and planning. And the red arrows show the same situation closer up, more like as critical decisions. Next, please. The results show a distinct difference between the groups, as the test group, the orange columns, is orientating better in risk situations and have a more conscious movement of their gaze. We have graphs that show frequency and also how long they concentrate on the right things. Here you can see that the fixation time is significantly longer in all the road junctions, the test areas, in the test group, which is an indication of a more planned and systematically conducted information collection, which is exactly what we're seeking. Next, please. Yeah, I think you have to, yeah, thank you. And here you can see just one of the testing points, and you can see the control group to the right have more random eye movements, while the test group use their eyes and attention in a much more conscious way. Next, please. So how did this training program function? The method is based on a cognitive learning approach in which the students were to participate actively. The purpose of such an approach was for students to create and construct cognitive maps that in turn would be used to identify and analyze various risk factors. The individual teacher had to be introduced to new and maybe unusual working methods. A problem-based form of teaching requires the teacher to select a situation or a defined case. Based on the discussions and discoveries that the students came up with, new questions and new issues had to be created. Teacher's guide was prepared to meet the teacher's need for subject terminology and to understand the work with traffic knowledge and skills in the best possible way. It points to key issues and tasks that students should discuss alone and with the teacher. These tasks were used to define a situation's degree of risk. The pupils and the teacher should together define a situation in 3 different grades: low risk, medium risk, and high risk. And this was again used in the practical implementation where various tactical assessments were discussed, understood, and applied precisely on the basis of the selected grades. Pupils in the study must make common but also private interpretations, which in turn creates a construction process. The teachers also say that the children understand risk in a completely different way. They say, while we have previously emphasized the rules and importance of different signs, children have now learned to move in traffic with a physical and reflective approach where risk has been the main focus. It has produced completely different learning outcomes, they say. Next, please. I also have to comment on the other principles. And now I'm on the 11th, and I just want to show you here on the website to our website that the Norwegian Council for Road Safety has made a model for behavior modification, and you can find it here on the website. Next, please. Just a short comment on that. Various factors determine people's motivations, notions, attitudes, and behavior. And comprehensive research throughout the years has developed a number of theoretical models that help us understand how we function, which factors that influence each other, and which factors that need to be considered when seeking to modify human behavior. The aim of our work with this model was to fill the gap between behavior theories and applied pedagogical traffic safety work by making use of established and well-recognized behavior theories, and then develop a joint model that can work as a sort of toolbox or guide when developing these applied traffic safety activities. I made a speech on this earlier, but I don't have time to go more into it today. So next, please. Assessments should be part of traffic safety and mobility education in order, of course, to guarantee that the pupils have gained the right knowledge, but also skills, behavior, and attitudes necessary to behave safely in traffic. This will furthermore allow for appropriate action to be taken if this is found not to be the case. The best practice example in the report from Norway here is the so-called 5E model. The 5 E's is standing for engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. And as you see, evaluation is placed in the center of the model because the purpose of evaluation is to promote learning, and because evaluation occurs in all phases of teaching. Pedagogical models can help us ensure quality in the development, implementation, and evaluation of projects, courses, and materials in traffic education. There are models having different perspectives, and they are not mutually exclusive. I think it is a matter of choosing the right tool for the right task. But the models can help us remember important factors that should be taken into account in a teaching situation, briefing situation, or in a phase of evaluation. Next, please. So to summarize, we have to ensure high quality education, not only because there are requirements for documentation and evaluation, but because it gives us effective measures in the short and long term. It gives us basis for development of material and interventions, and it gives us foundation for good communication with the educational system. I started to say that high quality education is hard work and no quick fix. That's why it is so important that we collaborate and share new knowledge like we do in this Learn project. The Norwegian Council for Road Safety is of course eager to share the results from children attention and cycling with you. There will be articles in English I can send you. They're not ready yet. In Norway, we will follow up on a broader scale in practice at more schools. The key lies in strengthening children's ability to self-regulate. And we now see that we actually have succeeded. As my colleague Bård Morten Johansen says, this is actually about survival. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen, for a very interesting presentation on using those new technologies. We're moving on to the fourth category of key principles, and these revolve around the facilitating framework conditions. And key principle 14 recommends the use of interdisciplinary material as a means to teach traffic safety and mobility education in schools. It should not only be taught via dedicated materials, but also should be integrated into the teaching materials of other subjects, such as maths and physics. And in our publication, we have a couple of examples, as this is also especially relevant for secondary schools. And one of the examples comes from Austria, where KpVV developed Risi & Co., which is because of its modular approach, provides lesson descriptions for the different subjects and can be adapted to the needs of individual schools and teachers. And another example is from Scotland, where lessons on speed and reaction times are integrated into physics lessons, as well as into media studies. I will now give the floor to Werner De Dobbeleer to tell us more about key principles number 15 and 16 and how they are implemented in Flanders. Werner.
Many thanks, Frank, and hello to you all following this Learn webinar all over the world. I've heard that you're really a great number of people participating in this webinar, which is of course great. As an organization, we from VSV, the Flemish Foundation for Traffic Knowledge, we feel very honored to be able to participate in this great project about road safety education and traffic safety and mobility education in Europe. So I will be talking to you about two key principles which are in the manual. So next slide, please, Frank. First of all, some key facts about Flanders, if you might not know us where we are. We're a region of Belgium, so in the northwest of Europe. We're only a very small, tiny region, less than 1/10 of the surface of Norway, for example, but with about the same amount of population, and which means that we're really densely populated, with also a very dense road network, one of the densest road networks in Europe, and very dense traffic conditions as well. And as a region, we have the competence for mobility, for road safety, and also for education, which gives us from VSV Flemish Foundation for Traffic Knowledge, really a good starting point, let's say, to work on this education. As we, as an organization, we are responsible for not only road safety education, but also for awareness raising in the region of Flanders. Next slide, please. So this Learn report with the key principles that were presented by the other speakers, I will now join or just focus on the facilitating framework conditions and two of these key principles that have to do with that. Next slide, please. So key principle number 15 says that member states should educate student teachers about traffic safety and mobility education during their training. This means that all student teachers should gain knowledge about traffic safety and mobility education during teacher training. And we've learned from the Learn Status report that this is not the case in many countries, since traffic safety and mobility education is not structurally addressed or only addressed in a limited manner in a number of countries. Whereas addressing traffic safety and mobility education in a structural manner during teaching training will surely help strengthen the competencies of teachers. Next slide, please. So this key principle number 15, how do we do that in Flanders? How do we approach it in Flanders? Well, we as a VSV, we organize workshops on traffic safety and mobility education for student teachers. And we organize these workshops for student teachers at different levels. For kindergarten teachers, for example, but also for primary school teachers and for secondary school teachers. In all these cases, it's at bachelor level. And when it comes to secondary school teachers, it's at bachelor level for teachers of physical education. Now, the target for these workshops are second and third year students. Excuse me. So the form in which we do this is practice-oriented workshops, which are given on site, 3 hours per workshop, and they are really measure-made. Which means that, for example, they are about knowing and using VSV traffic safety and mobility education teaching materials and programs on, let's say, the practical pedestrian and cycling trainings that we have, but also the pedestrian and cycling exams that we organize in Flanders. Sorry. So currently, these workshops are offered in 18 out of 20 student teacher programs throughout Flanders. And we strive to introduce traffic safety and mobility education in the official curriculum for student teachers. So we strive to have traffic safety and mobility education as a mandatory part of teacher training here in Flanders, which is not yet realized. Next slide, please. So key principle number 16 is about following up to ensure that traffic safety and mobility education is taught in schools. And for that, the national and local authorities should follow up with schools to ensure that, first of all, traffic safety and mobility education is taught, and secondly, it achieves the goals that are set out for it. By ensuring appropriate framework for follow-up is in place, for example, by including traffic safety and mobility education in accreditation audits for schools, also considering supporting measures if schools are found not to teach traffic safety and mobility education, or when quality doesn't allow for objectives to be achieved. For example, the reward system for role model schools. And let's say that this is really a long-term aim. It's not easily implemented or achieved, but nevertheless, it should be pursued by all actors. Next slide, please. So how do we do this in Flanders? Well, traffic safety and mobility education is part of the final attainment levels in Flanders. It's part of the official learning goals in primary schools since 1997, and also part of the first grade of secondary schools learning goals since last year, since 2019. For example, at the end of the primary school, at the age of 11 to 12, Pupils should be able to walk and cycle a known route, for example, from home to school, safely and independently. And in the first grade of the secondary schools, pupils should walk and cycle safely in traffic during school activities. And this involves the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor dimensions. In the second and third grade of secondary schools, these final attainment levels are in preparation and should be ready by September 2021. The Flanders Department of Education, of course, organizes compulsory regular school inspections on these official learning goals in Flanders. So the Department of Education can inspect schools on traffic safety and mobility learning goals. If schools fail to meet the minimum requirements, there is a negative report, including proposals for improvement. And if there are repeated failures, the Department of Education can impose sanctions. Next slide, please. So that was my story for you. A big thank you. And if you have any questions, please contact us.
Thank you very much, Werner, for your presentation. This leaves us with the last group of key principles, which is actually one key principle, and that is that everyone, pupils, students, parents, and all relevant stakeholders, such as authorities, organizations, and companies, should be involved in traffic safety and mobility education and activities. And in the spirit of this key principle, we call on you to implement these key principles in your national and local context. For example, if you're a policy maker attending this webinar, please consider with the team how you could implement these principles in your country, your region or municipality. And if you're from a road safety organization, please feel free to use the key principle report, but also the other learn resources to call on your national or local policy makers to improve road safety education. And please feel free to contact us at ETSC. We would be happy to support your activities where possible. Now, before going to the Q&A session, I want to quickly highlight the near future of the Learn project. And first of all, the next publication will, as Kristen already mentioned, go into more detail on high quality traffic safety and mobility education, as it will be a manual with guidelines on developing and evaluating educational activities. And for each step in the development, implementation, and evaluation of an activity, it will set out what should be considered, conducted, and included. And if you're familiar with the CAST manual for awareness raising campaigns, the Learn manual will be a light version for educational activities. The primary target group for the publication are therefore the developers of educational material, and we hope that the manual will whet their appetite for and guide them in the right direction to develop qualitatively sound educational material. However, the manual is also useful for authorities, school managements, and teachers, as the guidelines will reflect quality standards, which they can use for an assessment on the quality of the educational material when they, for example, need to decide on which material to buy or fund. And we will publish the report during the upcoming European Traffic Education Seminar. This third seminar is still envisaged to be held in Brussels somewhere this year. However, unfortunately, due to the current COVID restrictions, we cannot provide you with a more detailed date besides that we envisage it for the fall of this year. However, keep an eye on our website or subscribe to the events mailing list from ETSC to be informed when we announce the date for this European Traffic Education Seminar. I would also like to use this opportunity to thank the Learn expert panel. Their guidance and contributions have been invaluable to this project, and we're extremely grateful for their support. So many thanks. And I would also like to thank the project partners, Fondation Mafre and the Flemish Foundation for Traffic Knowledge VSV for their support. And I am happy to announce that together with these project partners, the Learn project will continue after the publication of the manual at the seminar. And in this second phase of Learn, we will have a large focus on dissemination. Once the situation allows for it, several regional traffic education seminars will be organized across Europe with the intention to focus specifically on traffic education in those regions' countries. And all the lessons learned from those regional seminars will then be taken back to Brussels, where we will organize another European traffic education seminar. In addition to that, we will also do a variety of activities to promote the Learn Toolkit, consisting of the key principles report we presented today, the manual which will be presented later this year, as well as the website. And should you wish to help promote traffic safety and mobility education in your country, please feel free to contact us in order for us to support where possible. And finally, in the new Learn project, or the new phase of the Learn project, we will be publishing a report on linking education on sustainable mobility and traffic safety. As I mentioned earlier, these often go hand in hand in achieving the same goal. So we come now to the Q&A part of this webinar. I will invite the other panelists to join me in the screen as well. I saw a lot of questions have come in, and I'll try my best to pick out most of them. We're also, in addition, joined by Vangelis, who also works at Road Safety Institute Panos Mylonas and supports us in the expert panel of the Learn project.
Hello from Athens.
Hello, Vangelis. I can see we're missing Wilma. Yeah, there is Wilma. Okay, the first question that we received is the wonderful news by Kristen about the new report that you mentioned. Where will this report be published? Kristen, we need to ask you to unmute.
Sorry, okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. There is one article in Norwegian in Gemini, and they're working on 2 articles, and I think both of them will be published in English. One on the neuroscience and the attention training program thing, and one on the more technical, the use of technology. 2 different articles will come.
Okay, and at the beginning of the presentation, you also mentioned the new report showing the effectiveness of traffic safety education. Is this already available?
That was about the same thing.
Okay.
I was thinking about the attention study.
Okay.
The children attention and cycling study.
Okay, and related to this question, there was another question that came in, and that is how important is it to measure the impact of traffic safety mobility education, and how difficult is it?
It's very important and very difficult. It's difficult because there are so many things that influence a learning situation. Students are different, and both students and teachers are influenced by so many different things. So to isolate sort of what is the key of the change is difficult. And it's important, of course, because we're talking about understanding risk, not just coping, because we're talking about insight, attitudes, understanding and practice, and not only knowledge. Knowledge is easy to test, but the broad way we try to look at this makes it difficult. But it's very important because what we want to achieve is the ability to behave in a safe way in lots of different situations. That's what the children have to do.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a next question that came in for Panos Mylonas. And the question is, what type of technology do you use? You mentioned simulators. What other types of technology do you use?
Yes, thank you. We use road safety simulators that come from all over the world, like a rollover car, an impact simulator, alcohol goggles. We have presented all the simulators at the Do It Right presentation at the European Traffic Education Seminar. So if you want to see more information concerning the simulators, you can go at the Learn site at the trafficsafetyeducation.eu, and you can find the presentation of Do It Right, and you can see all the simulators that are used for the Do It Right program and what are these.
Okay, thank you. And a follow-up question that was asked to you is somebody asked that it would be interested to know how you evaluate your educational programs for its effects, and particularly asks on behavioral change.
Yes. First of all, I have to say that we are accredited by the Greek Institute of Education Policy that ensures that the pedagogical framework of the programs is in line with the educational policy of the ministry, and it checks each year that it's pedagogical right for the students in case of any updates. And then concerning the evaluation of the programs, we have two kinds of questionnaires. The one is distributed to the teachers that measures the satisfaction concerning program, and it checks about the content, the issues that were covered, if they were adequately covered, the resources that were used, what kind of new knowledge offered to the students apart from what they have learned in class. And there are also open questions on the weak and the strong points of the program and how the program can be updated to become even better. Now, concerning the behavioral change, we distribute a questionnaire only to the Do It Right program because it's easier to have it on the adolescents fulfilling a questionnaire. And this also covers its before and then after questionnaire, before the training, the intervention, and after the intervention. And it measures also behavioral questions concerning like seatbelt use, helmet use, drink driving. And also you can find at the presentation of the Do It Right at the European Traffic Education Seminar in January 19. You can find at the Learn project website. You can also find some results of the evaluations that were made for the Do It Right program.
Okay, thank you very much. A question also on behavior change for Wilma. The question was with regards to behavioral change and how it's our long-term behavior change is integrated in the road safety labels programs.
Hope I understand the question right. The road safety label is as I said, an umbrella project which is concerned with road safety education in every grade. When you have road safety education in every grade, the chance for long-term behavior change or adapting some behavior is bigger than when you do it in some grades or some moments. That's the key elements of the label. I read the question and it was also about other road safety programs, I believe. It's difficult to change behavior in one program. I mean, everybody is trying to do that, but as Kristen said, measuring it, what the effect is quite hard. What we are trying in Holland is not only put effort in road safety education, but also in all spheres, atmospheres around the child or around people. So like the sports club or the parents, and try to develop things or campaigns or programs to connect these persons in road safety education in the end, but it doesn't feel like that always. If we have programs for sport canteens where you take the issue of drink drive things, yeah, you influence the parents, but also in the end the children and vice versa. So we try to expand the sphere of where we use these elements of behavior change.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that an answer? I don't know.
We'll notice if a follow-up question comes in via the Q&A button. A question for actually all panelists, as a question came on virtual approaches, and Kristen already showed one virtual approach. How do you use virtual excuse me, approaches as well, and do you have different results for those projects compared to your presentational projects or other types of projects? I don't know who would like to respond to that question. I saw Werner nodding. Yes, Werner?
Yes, thank you, Frank. So we do use a virtual approach with VR goggles, in fact, in a project around the blind spot of large trucks, large lorries. And instead of having one lorry in a school and children around it to teach them where the blind spots are, this is now converted into a kind of VR reality project where children can just wear the goggles, and it's like they are really behind the wheel of a large 40-ton truck, and they can see where exactly the blind spots are and what happens when the truck takes a turn to the right, for example, across a cycling path. On the other hand, it's also, we can show youngsters what the cyclist experiences and what the cyclist sees when this truck starts its maneuver. So this is one thing that we use, and it has a lot of success, but up to now we didn't measure what the outcome of this project really is in terms of learning outcomes.
Okay, thank you. Maybe another question, and this one came in from Ireland, where they're trying to make road safety education compulsory in secondary schools. And the question to all of you, are any of the programs that are presented today are compulsory for schools to take? And if so, if there is any advice that could be offered to make them compulsory? I don't see a question, but maybe I can ask Werner a follow-up question, maybe in a similar vein. In Flanders, as of last year, the traffic safety education is incorporated in the curricula for secondary schools. Maybe from your perspective as VSV, could you tell us about the process, and then perhaps also from your perspective as VSV, on how this came about and what you needed to do to motivate the policymakers to include it in the curricula?
Well, this was kind of a long-term process because we were asking this for years. We had many talks with people in the Flemish Parliament, with people from the Department of Education. So many talks with experts as well to see how we could fit this traffic safety and mobility education learning goals into the official curriculum and the official learning goals that are applied in Flanders. So we had many working groups, many discussions on that. And then when there was a kind of let's say, big reform of the Flemish educational system, which started back 3 or 4 years ago, we saw this as our chance to put this theme into the discussions once again, and then this led to the formulation of these specific learning goals also for secondary education.
Okay, thank you very much. Going to the last question, we received a couple of questions on the current situation with regards to COVID-19, and perhaps a question for all of you. How can we teach road safety to children in this current situation with the current COVID restrictions? Or maybe how are you currently approaching it with schools being closed or now gradually opening again? Kristen.
Actually, we just this spring we launched a totally new bicycle program. It's a website. And we have succeeded in trying to spread this during the time, because in this program, it's not only work for the teachers, but also for the parents. So we have tried to use this opportunity to where schools now use digital teaching materials in a totally new way, and it's kind of a boost. And this goes quite well together with the way we were thinking, with printing less and less, and we put more and more on our website. It's more flexible. It's easy to make it up to date, talking about that. It's easy to keep in touch with the users and teachers. So we also give courses now, digital courses. And I think this is actually a new opportunity. It doesn't, I mean, we managed to have this webinar now. We would like to meet, and we will certainly continue to meet teachers and meet schools. But I think also we reach a lot of new users, and we can reach many more through new ways of thinking.
So answer from Norway is digitalization. I saw Wilma also had her hand up in the Netherlands.
So digitalization is also the case in our country, but I received a question from one of the provinces. What are the criteria we use for digital material, and are these coherent with what we are using now for investigating the project in quality terms? So do we need to put other criteria to these digital projects than to not digital projects? That's a question we're busy with now.
Okay, it would be very interesting to also hear from you about the answer later on when you've looked into it more closely. Vangelis, I also saw your hand, correct?
Yes. I would also like to stress this, that Wilma and Werner said that always the crisis is an opportunity, and we have to make it an opportunity, the digitalization. We're also trying to update our programs to become more digital. We're also having these online courses in the terms of the cross project in July for the teachers, and also the contests that can also run even the schools are closed, because students and teachers are maybe they will be in restriction in their homes, but they can also think about road safety and the day after when they will come back to schools. So we saw that although we had this contest this year, and although the schools were most of the time in the spring closed, we also had many works coming to us, videos and digital creations from children. So I think that there are always ways to find ways to communicate and spread the message for road safety even in schools, even if the schools are closed. Yeah, I think Vassiliki would also like to add something from our work and from the previous question concerning on how we can, of the Irish Institute, and how we can persuade the policymakers to include road safety, because this is something that the Institute is fighting for from the very first day of its creation. So I think she would like to add something.
If I may add to what Vangelis said, first thing he commented, we have been providing the results of previous year and our digital contest as tools for further work during the coronavirus period. So the kids working even with the parents and at schools, because lessons were provided digitally, remotely to schools during this period. And the other thing on how to persuade the government, we have had interventions at the Parliament, at the Road Safety Committee, where we strongly supported the traffic safety and mobility education And when the teachers and the mayors, because we have been working with municipal authorities, with regions all over the country, and when they see the importance and the change of behavior, they realize the value. We had parents calling the mayor himself after the programs to thank him for undertaking this initiative and support of our programs in their different municipalities. And so once they see the importance and the value of what we do, that's why I insist to what already was said by Frank and Antonio. Quality education is very important. Once we secure the quality, then you're sure to believe. And of course, raising awareness and promoting the programs and promoting the good practices, and then things are changing. And we see that continuously. Even the foundation of the Greek Parliament, when the president of the Parliament was in one of our events, he asked us to request a grant from the foundation of the Greek Parliament and ask for their support. And Vangelis also discussed about the evaluation, presented how to do evaluation. And concerning the follow-up of the programs we do with the Ministry of Justice, the follow-up is done by the probation officers when they see the behavioral, the change of the behavior of all those people who have been sentenced by the court. And they are mostly teenagers. This is more or less, I don't know if this answers the question. And also within the corporate social responsibility is very important to have road safety included.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that was a very thorough answer. Let me quickly click mute. And I think it also had a lot of messages to take away for the audience on what can be done. Just the final question on Werner. Road safety education during COVID in Flanders, as we haven't heard from you on that one.
Sorry?
Road safety education during COVID-19 in Flanders? During
COVID-19, we know that schools are quite reluctant to have, for example, cycling exams or pedestrian exams in these weeks. They have other things to do, other worries, I should say, than organizing these exams. We're looking into solutions for schools to be able to do this anyway. So the solution is there, but we are now looking into combinations of working online with, let's say, real-world teaching and real-world exams.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have enough questions to continue for another half hour, but I see we're already over time, so I will leave it at this. Thank you very much for joining, first of all, the panelists for your great presentations. I would also like to thank actually all of the expert panel for Learn for all your invaluable support, as well as Fondation MAF and VSV, and to all the attendees who joined us today. I hope this was a very useful and motivating webinar, which you got a lot of inspiration and recommendations to take home to see how traffic safety mobility education could be improved in your local or national context. The webinar will be uploaded later on YouTube, and the presentation slides will be made available as well. We will follow up with the attendees and send you an email with the links once both become available. And I think I'll leave that at that. I hope that we can all meet each other in the end of the year during the European Traffic Education Seminar in Brussels. But yeah, until then, I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Frank, for organizing.